Hi again. I'm gonna try to finish off sort of the high school-ish portion of this story this time. I'm doing it a little late. Kind of got distracted. Kind of lost track of time, to be honest with you. So I wanted to clarify some things. First thing I wanted to clarify is that Facebook had been around since I was in middle school, but I didn't really want to get on it because, like, freaking, it just seemed like it took the whole social media thing and turned like an artsy thing and then a self-expressive thing into lists. So for a long time, I wasn't on it, and people were still on MySpace. So, but I was still on MySpace up until at least halfway through the first year of high school, and then I switched to Facebook at some point. Um, Blah blah blah. So this definitely started on MySpace in terms of arguing with this Christopher Sanchez. It started when I was 14, and I know that because I'm clarifying things from previous episodes, to be honest with you. I know that because I got a job at 14 and yada yada blah blah. I kind of misspoke last time. This is very important too. Kind of misspoke where it might have sounded like I said something I didn't. The FBI are not participating in any lewd sex acts or anything, or any of the Antifa's funny business. Thank you very much. Sorry if anyone misunderstood. In terms of shit like that, yeah, I was just sort of getting into what I probably haven't referred to yet as like sort of a weird like passive aggressive attack and like siege of my life, including my high school, apparently UAM. I guess I'm just gonna sort of like run through it because it's late. It's kind of like here. It's a beautiful spot. There's humans. I don't know if I want to have a long conversation about sex crimes, things involving FBI shit. I'm here. I feel a certain way. It is what it is. So essentially, in the background of like Urban Assembly for Media Studies, there was like kind of drama where people would be talking shit or like basically spreading information, apparently false information, about students through like Facebook, Skonex, MySpace, mostly Skonex apparently. Okay, these are all just social media sites, and we didn't really know who it was. I think eventually like this kid Ralphie took the fall essentially. What? I don't know. I always kind of had arguments with my mother, and that was like neither here nor there. She's a bit nuts and controlling in her way. And apparently, but eventually, basically, what happened? It was apparently some like long-term campaign to like passive-aggressively like passive-aggressively harass me and aggressively harass, let's say, people in my life, and eventually culminated, I guess, because women can, especially probably in high school, but I don't know, apparently women seem easier to blackmail. They seem to understand blackmail more when you talk to them, but they seem apparently easier to blackmail. So apparently a lot of women, especially in my life, were sort of compromised and sort of like treating me a certain way at an arm's distance. And I was a really nice guy. I'm still a really nice guy, I think, but I was a really protective, warm, caring guy, so I was told. And basically, and meanwhile, at the same time, I was kind of still this simple kid that believed kind of the straight and narrow, like scientific facts of truth, where it's like, well, and it was actually a better story back then. The story of your life, according to pop culture and science back then, was essentially, especially as a man, right? A man's story, let's say, simple Darwinist story was like, okay, you're born, you get this, you're born a certain way, chemically, let's say, and you do everything you can, let's say, as a man to impress women so that you can do this and that, and so you can reproduce because you're still an animal, and maybe all religion is just a hoax, and I never really believed that, but I did believe, and I still do to a degree, there's like a lower nature and a higher nature, and the lower nature is going to be lower nature, so what do you expect? So I was we're talking about between 14 and 17 right now, and it's like I lacked experience. I was kind of like shut in, sort of, for a while. Not between that, but like before that, so I lacked a lot of experience. I'm also just shy in general, right? And here I fucking am. We continue, and I had a tendency to be a bit, let's say, when I postured and when I spoke, I would pretend to have more experience than I did, and there's power to, like, you're not supposed to kiss and tell because it means you can pretend to have experience, but I was a bit full of shit, and to be honest with you, it worked out because of how I look, especially if I were to say shave right now or whatever it is, and how, like, our little social cues you can use, especially in high school and things like that, to flirt or whatever. So I end up with this beautiful woman. I won't even say, and and I do manage to get a lot of experience with her because, regardless of my bullshit, like, to be honest with you, I guess. And let's narrow it the fuck down. So, she was beautiful, physically. Okay. Regardless of that, I had social anxiety. And regardless of that, I also just didn't actually, let's say, like her personality that much. Like, I actually sort of gained appreciation for her over time, but the sad thing is that she was always kind of like a notch in my belt in my universe. She was never supposed to be important, and what happens is what? Let's just say all the passive aggression from all the women in my life kind of comes into a culmination, and all that, like, chemical Darwinist shit that's supposed to make me happy, the sex that's supposed to make me happy, regardless of whether or not I want to spend the rest of my life with this woman, let's say, doesn't. It works. It just doesn't. And I'm like, hello darkness, my old friend. It's like, okay, if everything works and it's not working, then what does that mean? And it's like I said, up until that point, I was kind of like a master of self manipulation, let alone manipulation, because it's like, in order to lie, you have to be able to, like, fucking simulate emotion sometimes, shallow, false emotion. So it's like, oh, wait a minute, I know whether or not I want to, I can spend the rest of my life with this woman. She doesn't know how full shit I am. And right now, like, let's say all the women in my life are acting kind of full of shit. We're all going everyone in high school is going our separate ways. And as we become adults, the women seem to be emotionally closing off, and that's okay, because women are going to be women and men are going to be men, and who knows what that means. But now I'm profoundly unhappy because nobody knows me, because I'm so dishonest, let's say, and 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 I've spent all my time, let's say, like trying to be there for people and not being myself. And it's not as though people are there for me in return. And I can't even blame them, because if I'm not being myself, if I'm not being honest about what I like or don't like, then what am I doing? And the truth is, the reason why I was so like willing to shut down, let's say, my own wants and needs, was to be able to fully, let's say, grasp what others were feeling, so that I could do whatever it is I was going to do. I never had any negative intentions. Like I said, I was just kind of going through the motions of my life. And I expected things to be a certain way. I expected to kind of live on rails and have it a certain way, even in my own, like, let's say, psychological and biological metabolism. So I'm going through this, and I'm like, holy shit, I've been dishonest for a good, I'm at, let's say, 17. And I'm going through, like, mildly traumatic experiences for sure. And it's not like, whenever I go through them with people, it's not a suppressed memory or anything. Whenever I go through them with people, I always realize, yeah, it's not nearly as bad as I think it is. It's just like that moment, that thing, and you start to realize how people are able to engineer these things. So what? So I realized that for 3 years I haven't really paid a lot of attention to the things that I want, and maybe I don't know who I am because I've been through so much. And basically, I start realizing, okay, yeah, we're gonna walk, we're gonna be moving. So I start realizing, okay, I don't. Yeah, when you're growing up, especially like my generation, or not especially, I feel like my generation was the first generation to really have Google. And generations prior to mine had to while growing up, if you were going to masturbate, you were to collect certain things, and certain things were available and certain things weren't, right? So I had Google, right? We all have Google now, and Google is even less complicated now than it was. Back then there was all this and being a shut-in, like Catholic family and all this is everything's up for grabs. And I never knew it would hit me in a certain way. I never thought it meant anything, because my whole system, my whole thought process and system was well, your body is your body and your mind is your mind, and of course you can do things with certain things, and really knowing how to use your body has nothing to do with the person you become, or this, that, and that's still more or less accurate. Bottom line is, porn addiction is really, really bad for you, right? And you might not know that, you might not hear people thinking about it or talking about it. I understand why it's not a popular subject at parties, but here's my short and simple of the thing for men. Your hand's never going to feel like what she feels like. So it's okay. So you get into that, and you're okay, so all this is different, and I've never done this in real life before, and therefore, who knows who I am in real life if I've been full of shit for 3 years, let's say. And you start thinking about it, this is going to be the conclusion, because we're going to 15 minutes now. And essentially, I had a very good friend, David, because by now I had fallen out with my friend Harrison. And one day, since I'm so depressed and I'm wondering who I'm going to talk to, And up until this time, I had attempted to like emulate this alpha male out of nowhere with no experience and experiences I didn't have, some preferences I wasn't sure I had, and things like that. So I'm speaking to this guy after school, and he's like, "What's wrong, Chris? What's wrong?" And I tell him my story. And I tell him everything, and I'm like, "Dude, for all I know, I'm fucking gay, And he's like, "You think you might be gay, dude?" And I'm like, "Yeah, literally, yeah." That's kind of like getting to me because women are important to me. My love life is important to me, and it's like, holy shit, what does that even mean if I'm confused on that deep a level? I've been having crushes on women since I was like 5 or younger, counting like TV people, just odd. And I was like, holy shit. And he's like, "Chris, I was born with HIV. I had no idea. Nobody knew." I was like, holy shit. And I guess for him it was like, yo, this guy's really hurt. I've been really hurt this whole time and not telling anyone. And that was like, he's a very good friend, Daniel David, and he was able to be there for me in ways other people couldn't. He was born with HIV. He was like, his parents had it, and to be honest with you, I didn't understand why he couldn't tell people. But I guess from his perspective, it was exactly the same for me. It was just some like petty machismo. And I was like, yeah, dude, like, I totally get it. Like, wow. And we gave each other a good hug. And we were there for each other for as long as we could be. He's gone now, unfortunately. He was supposed to die at 5 years old. He lived to be about 28, if I remember correctly. And I am going to let's say that you have social anxiety, so you're kind of full of shit, right? I'm trying to impress a woman who tries to impress people anyway. You're trying to take this girl's V card, as she used to say, and you have it set up. You don't have a lot of space. You don't have that much time, but you have it set up. Okay. Trying to go through your social anxiety. Okay. I'm gonna do this. Okay. Your mom, she's crazy. She's not that bad. You just tell her like, hey, can you not do this one thing? Can you just not knock at the door and tell me what time it is? You know what I'm saying? Don't knock at the door, tell me what fucking time it is. We got watches, we got cell phone, there's a clock. That's it. And for some reason, midway through, she does that. It is 12:45. 8 times. Okay, now it's not as bad as you might think. You might be like, whoa. I'm not going to get into all the psychology of why it hit me so hard. It really doesn't matter. I don't care. I'm sure lots of people would probably expect more. It actually hit me hard. It was like, made me question my entire life. Give me an existential crisis. But like, hold on. What's going on? Because literally, chemicals should work, right? Chemicals inside chemicals. You're thinking very literally. You'd be like, well, no, that should be fine. And it was fine. It wasn't like the worst experience of my life. It is what it is. I'm just saying, what irritation. Kind of drove me nuts. And I'm about to finish because this is about 20 minutes. I'm sure you might understand why I didn't feel like rushing through it, especially since it's such a vague, early portion of the situation. So essentially, I get into an argument with this guy, Christopher Sanchez. Oh yeah, and there is one final portion, isn't there? So I basically told you guys the whole situation. So this whole time I'm fucking I'll go through 2 more portions. So this whole fucking time So I go through that, right? And I'm like, holy shit. So what exactly am I if hypothetically I'm just programmed, right? But I just second guess everything. But it's like, okay. And I do manage to talk to my sister. I talk to my mom and my dad. They're pretty accepting. They're like, they seem to wish they could help. My sister ends up being friends, I think I mentioned it before, with this guy, Chris Sanchez. She's like, oh my God, he's got this big crush on you. He's younger than you though. But if you're really feeling like, bi-curious or whatever, I was like, I can't argue with you 100%. That's the issue, I can't argue with you 100%. But the truth is, it's like, okay. So I don't really like being hooked up with anyone, honestly. I'm not a guy who just you can direct into intimate things. You can barely direct me to choose what job I'm gonna get. I don't follow orders. So meanwhile, I'm not going to gay bars and shit. No, I live in New York City and I still didn't run into any situation, and then I was feeling antisocial. It was not easy to, and I wasn't doing porn, just didn't want it anymore. It was didn't even want to eat meat, didn't want to eat. I was really depressed. It's this coincided with a huge depression, a huge health went down, in many different ways. I almost got diabetes and pre-diabetic symptoms. So it doesn't really, I don't feel like I get lots of opportunities to check on that. So eventually, I basically get desperate, right? I'm like, Grace, go ahead, hook me up with this guy. And she's like, nah. And I don't know what happened. Apparently she had a big falling out with this guy. This guy was some sort of control freak, sex freak, and psychopath. I never spoke to this guy. I didn't even connect him to the MySpace guy I had an argument with. Literally, that name is so most common denominator in a way. Chris Sanchez or Christopher Sanchez, that I was I didn't connect the two. And then for some reason she backs out of it, and I just felt there's just another thing my sister promised and backed out. And I end up basically at school, while I'm having my questions, putting my hand on a friend's shoulder, a friend who doesn't even know, and honestly, the feeling, just basically the same, this is different than what you might imagine it to be. I experienced that, and because I was experiencing it with both human bodies, let's say, it reassured me that it's you're not really confused so much as, well, you're confused, but you're not confused. That's just sort of porn fucked you up. You were expecting it to feel like your hand, and you were expecting to see it kind of from a third person perspective, and now you're there and you're confused, and you're expecting it's we expect it all to go perfectly, and it doesn't. And apparently, oddly enough, this was part of a demoralization campaign. Is that absurd? Yes. Yes. Yes, it is. I've gone on very long. I think I mentioned everything, where it kind of climaxes with my sister kind of doing that. There's that happenstance, and then me and Daniel get mad close, because we are able to bond over our secrets. Apparently, this guy Christopher Sanchez is in the background of my life, talking to my sister, and I'm not realizing it because he has a very kind of most common denominator name. He was in Detroit when I argued with him on MySpace anyway, so the idea that he's nearby or some shit is just absurd to me. And yeah, and the same person just because they have the same name. And we went through, like, oddly enough, we already went through the entire experience, because that's about as, like, kind of, anyway, you heard me. That's how I figured out how I felt about putting my hands, get in contact with a man. I put my hands on a man's shoulder, and he was a friend I'd known for 4 years. It was high school, so it was like, okay. I was like, oh, guess that's that. Dun, 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 dun. And it's only like such a hot topic that, like, I was bi-curious at all in high school and didn't even do anything, with a person, let's say, because these people apparently hide behind the gay flag and are attempting to claim that I am some closeted, like, Christian conservative, and apparently they blackmail a lot of men with gay sex, probably without consent, but I don't know. But if you're going to get blackmailed with something, it probably happens without consent. And apparently these idiots, they videotape themselves and photograph themselves committing crimes. And because a couple of them are in the NYPD, they assumed that they could just sort of put my face, something like that, on videos and photos of them doing things that they believe that blackmail people with. And just sort of go, oh, that was him. And so I have varying amounts of faith that these people are going to accuse me of being gay, as though it was some crime, and then put out some Photoshop, and then try to put on, like, some sort of, like, and that's how all this feels. Adolescence. Some adolescent show. I'm not gay. And it wouldn't matter if I was gay. It wouldn't matter if I was bi. It doesn't matter that I'm straight. But it just doesn't feel like an option. It doesn't feel like there are options there. Anyway, so here we are. It's nighttime. I feel better. We're at 28 minutes. And they're still performing weird sex acts in my ceiling. I would try to record it, but it's kind of... Well, to be honest with you, if you didn't get it in the night, that couple of times, or da-da-da-da-da-da, and, like, why do I want to record their weird noises, which is just them trying to smack their lips, and being as loud as possible and being weird, flamboyant about it. And going, you consented to this. You consent. When you consented to capitalism, you consented to this. And oddly enough, at this point, regardless of their having sieged my life for a certain amount of time, like, this basically is the most pleasant portion of this, because for a portion they were raping a young woman and a young man. So they're hiding behind the gay flag and trying to go, he's just homophobic. Oh, and they're pedophiles. And it's like, you're losers. He's just homophobic and closeted. And it's like, these lefties, really, at the end, that's your biggest insult? You're gonna call me a homophobic, closeted Antifa? Bye.